This is Dr. Teresa A. Smith, Dr. Taz, and I am so happy to be with you tonight. For those of you who may not know me, I am an author, I'm a motivational speaker, and I'm a coach. And I really focus on emotional well-being, focus a little bit on health because there is a connection between our physical health and our emotional health. But my whole focus in life is helping individuals live the best life that they can live. And today I was thinking about change. And I'm in North Carolina. And last week it was warm. And it kept getting warmer as each day passed. And so in the weekend it was very warm. And then yesterday and today it's like, okay, I got to turn the heat on. And I thought about how seasons change, and sometimes it's difficult for us to adjust to the same changing seasons. And likewise, it's the same thing about life. Whether we're talking about our personal life, our work, our career, or organizations, it's always a little challenging to deal with change. And as I thought about that, I was reminded of one of my books, which is Transformation. In this book, the very first chapter, I lay it out. Change is challenging. There's no way around it, but inevitably it is going to occur to each and every one of us. But how we respond to the change dictates, from my perspective, how long we're caught up in that wheel or in that tornado, the hurricane, whatever it is that sort of has you siloed and you can't get out of it. So change is challenging. It's inevitable. There's nothing we can do about it. But we can't do anything about the change occurring, but how we respond to it is most important. So I started thinking about, how do I respond to change? Do I embrace it or do I push it away? Because I really don't want to have to deal with it. Sometimes we avoid it. Sometimes we, quote unquote, we're working on it, but we're still not really working on it. And I began to think about strategies that we could use and strategies that I've used to deal with this thing called change. And the first one is you got to accept it. As I said, one thing that you can almost put 100% on is that change is going to occur. And I don't know if you guys have noticed it, it always seems to occur when you least expect it. You're going down the road, everything is just great. And then you realize you left your lunch or you left your laptop, your work bag, whatever it is, it's at home and you're already 10 miles or 10 minutes down the road. What do I do? So it always sort of sneaks up on us, but we just got to accept that is a part of life. And accepting it begins to open the door. We're cracking a door to embracing the change. And sometimes there's a lesson in there. And when we begin to crack the door, we can begin to crack really what's a code for what is occurring with us. So we've got to accept that this has happened. When we begin to accept it, then there's a shift in our mind. Now, what are you talking about, Dr. Taz? Our perspective changes. And when you don't see the change as a threat, but something that you should embrace instead, you're shifting your mind. You're shifting how you are viewing something. And again, we're opening a door. So that strategy begins to open the door a little wider. So we've gone from, I got to accept it because change is change and I can't do anything about it, to maybe I'm beginning to do a mindset shift because that's important. The next thing is, this has happened to me. Let's use that example that I talked about. You're 10 miles down the road and all your work stuff is at home. Okay. Now, we don't want that to happen too many times because I had to turn around and go home to get my items because I couldn't work. So what am I going to do about that? I'm going to start planning and setting goals on how to make sure I leave my home with everything that I need when I'm going to work. Well, you're planning. You're facing a change, which says that for some reason I'm absent-minded now and I'm leaving things at the house. So I'm going to set some clear goals about how I'm going to now leave my home every day with what I need. So I got goals, I got a plan, I'm putting a strategy in place. And that's going to give me a sense of control regarding how I'm dealing with this change. Because for some reason, I can't leave the house with everything that I need anymore. Who knows why? Also, you have to have a support system. Now, you said, gotta have a support system about leaving the house with everything, Dr. Toss? Yes, because we're using that as an example. But the change that you may be trying to embrace, because we're opening the door, may be something totally different. So you got to have a support system. That may be family, it may be friends, it may be colleagues, it could be a neighbor, but you have to have someone who can then help support you. So what am I saying? Don't be afraid to ask for help, because we all need help sometime. Okay? So don't be afraid of it. The next thing is, as we begin to deal with this fact that change is challenging, self-care. Now I'm telling you, during instances or circumstances where, life is evolving around you and you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do? We're dealing with it, but our body, not just our minds, but our body reacts to it. I like to tell this story. I'd had some abdominal surgery and I was at home, and what happened was someone said something and I didn't like it. And so it felt as if someone hit me in my abdomen. Now, normally we refer to that as butterflies because it's just like a little ting. Well, because my abdomen was healing, when I had the butterflies, that little ting-a-ding-ding, it felt like someone had just socked me. And so again, when we are experiencing a change, our bodies are reacting. We may not realize it. For those who suffer with high blood pressure, your blood pressure may be going up. If you've got some other ailments, they may start to shift and your numbers may be different. So self-care is not an option. It's a necessity, and it's not selfish, because you have to take care of yourself, because every time there's a change, we all interface with the change differently. I felt this way the last time. It's a different change. It could be the same change, but now I'm interacting with it from a totally different stance. So how do I do that? Maintain my emotional health, maintain my physical health, and remain productive on my job, as well as maintain my personal relationships, my relationships with my family, community, organizations, and the list goes on and on and on. So thank you for joining me. So again, how do we do that? Self-care. You got to do it. You got to figure out what is it that gives you that sense of comfort so that you can reflect and refresh, renew your battery so you can do something again and again and again. Also, this might be the hardest one. I usually think self-care is the hardest one, but this may be the hardest one. You have to learn from the past. What are you talking about, Todd? I got to learn from my past? Yes. It's so easy for us to, something happens, we deal with it at that moment, or we think we dealt with it, or we're going to deal with it, how we're going to deal with it. But a year down the road, 5 years down the road, 10, 15, 20, 30, that situation is still with us. And so we have been dragging that situation with us for years and years and years. Now, depending upon what it is, you could be dragging it into relationships. Relationships meaning personal relationships, but also your job. Because depending upon what has happened, it overflows. It could have been a job issue. And so now you've taken it into your job, and it's like folks are looking at you like, what is going on with her? Because it's just a simple request. Seems like she's overreacting. Well, you are. Let's be real, because I'm not reacting to the current situation. I'm reacting to the past. And it would be the same thing in our friend relationships, family, likewise, our personal relationships. Because sometimes I was speaking with someone this week or either in the last week, and we were in a session, and what was happening was this person couldn't let it go. They couldn't let it go. They were still bringing their past into the relationship. And as such, the relationship was sort of on shaky grounds now, because they couldn't let it go. They thought that they were in a good space, but they weren't in a good space because they were still responding to this new relationship based upon what had occurred in the past. So getting to a place where you can learn from your past and not let the past drive your present nor drive your future, because it has a way of kind of sticking to us like super glue or something like that. And before we realize it, it ain't even about that person. It's not about these people. It's about the past. And now the past has overtaken my present and is trying to prevent me from having the future that I want to have. The other thing, which I'm kind of toying, is it learning from the past that's the toughest one, or is it staying patient and persistent? Sometimes it is challenging to continue to work at something when perhaps you don't see the results that you're wanting. But change is a process. It's a process. Think about your jobs. It's a process. We're implementing a new software, a new process for whatever. We did a pilot. We thought we fixed all of the bugs or the kinks based upon the pilot. But now that everybody is using whatever the new process is or the new software, now we're having these problems. Well, it's economies of scale, because now we're there and the reality of what's occurring is sitting in. Likewise, it's the same thing for us as we try to navigate this thing called change. We have to learn to be patient but persistent. Keep ourselves internally motivated as well as using some external motivations. But you have to be internally motivated because you have to drive it. No one else can truly help you when you're hitting that brick wall because it didn't work out the way you thought it was going to work out. They can support you because remember, we need a support system, but you have to dig deep within you and have strategies in place so that when you hit the brick wall, you're able to, I always say, give yourself a couple hours, and then you have to dig yourself out of it. Because the longer you stay in that low place, the harder it is to come out of it. But I do believe in experiencing your emotions because then you can use that to fuel your determination. So again, we got to stay patient, but persistent. So these are the strategies that I was thinking about today when I started thinking about change and the weather and how it sometimes flips back and forth. So I'd love to hear some of the strategies that you use to deal with change. Any questions or comments that you have, please leave them in the comment section. And I guess if I was going to leave you with something tonight, it is understanding that change is inevitable. We can't do anything about it, but learn to embrace it. The highs and the lows and the curveballs that we sometimes have thrown at us, embrace it, because when you're like this and it's still happening around you, it makes the change process even more challenging. Think about it. But if you're open to it, and I'm going to stumble a little bit, but I'm open to this change, then I will move through it faster. I'll learn any lessons that I need to learn faster. And I get to the next stage of my development. Because understand, no matter how old we are, we're still evolving and we're still developing. And that's the great thing about being alive, because that means each time we have an experience, we have the opportunity to continue to mold ourselves into the person that we were destined to be. So keep that in mind as you encounter change. And of course, for those who know me, you know my sign off is this, because of some change that I experienced a couple months back. Before you take care of anybody else, I'm listening. Listen to me now. I'm real serious about this. Before you take care of anybody else, please take care of yourself first. Because if you're not in a good space, it can't take care of anybody else. And as I said with tonight's IG Live, talking about change is challenging, one of the strategies is self-care. So make sure you take care of yourself first so then you can help someone else. I look forward to your questions and comments in the comment section. Until next time, make sure you take care of you first. Bye now.